and it really, Roger, there's nothing really original there.
No, I didn't say there was.
I know,
no.
not at all.
No, all the originality takes place before they get to the bar.
So, I mean, I'm sitting there and saying, all right, I'm invested, I'm laughing at some of this stuff, as violent as it is, and it is hyper-violent.
I love you, honey bunny.
I just felt that, you know, they tried.
Everybody be cool, this is a robbery!
Any of you fucking pricks move! And I'll execute every motherfucking last one of you!
Earlier on the program, I said Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction was one of the year's best films, and so it is. But it comes from a writer, director, actor who is still in the process of finding his voice, and who is the most visible member of a circle of young filmmakers who seem to have grown up in video stores memorizing old movies. The word I associate most easily with Quentin Tarantino is energy. I've met him several times, and I've always found him bursting with enthusiasm. He's so happy to be making movies, he's like a kid in a candy store. His movies don't seem to have much experience of ordinary life. His characters aren't particularly three-dimensional. They do indeed seem to be straight out of Pulp Fiction, but it's not the people he's interested in, it's the movie images they can populate. Hitchcock used to claim that his movies were about one thing only, and that was manipulating the audience. So far, that could also be said of Tarantino. But when he's on, it sure is fun.
Well, I think the writing is maybe even better than you're giving him credit for. I think it's not just that it's all a joke. I think some of the writing is, at least I feel now finally, in the first film of his that I like, this current picture, Pulp Fiction, is that there is some humanity in the writing.
Called Reservoir Dogs, and starring a cast full of veteran tough guys who pull a stick up that goes very wrong. The movie stars one of the legendary bad guys of the movies, Lawrence Tierney, as the ringleader who assembles a crowd of criminals who don't know one another and then assigns them all names based on colors. Some of them don't like their names much.
You're not Mr. Purple. Some guy has some other job as Mr. Purple. You're Mr. Pink.
The robbery, which takes place mostly off-screen, is a botched job, and Harvey Keitel ends up driving the badly wounded Tim Roth back to their rendezvous.
Joe's gonna get you a doctor. The doctor's gonna fix you up.
As the crooks gather, they realize that the whole caper has gone wrong very badly, and what was supposed to be a victory celebration turns into blood and panic.
What, are we on a playground here, huh?
Some of the robbery scenes are shown in flashback, including this one where the wounded getaway driver is the movie's writer and director, Quentin Tarantino.
You're not blind. You just got blood in your eyes, all right?
On the basis of Reservoir Dogs, Tarantino there obviously has talent and a gift for using actors, but I was never really sure what he thought the point of this movie was. There are too many scenes of behavior and no scenes of insight, and as the guys assemble back at the warehouse, there's too much talk from characters who should really be unconscious or mad with pain instead of giving us all that dialogue. I liked the movie as far as it went. I wanted it to go further and try more.
I had the same reaction, Roger. I thought it was a lot of an exercise in style. But then I got that really quick. I mean, I understand what he's trying to do here, which is to show things in crime movies that crime movies don't show. For example, the sloppiness, the humor. But we get that within 15 minutes, and then the movie doesn't have anything more to say.
There is one scene in the movie that has a life of its own, and that's when Michael Madsen is dancing around and torturing that poor cop who's tied to the chair, and it's a very, very violent scene. In fact, this whole movie is very violent.
Yes.
But I felt that a scene like that was using action instead of just all of this dialogue. The rest of the movie is empty.
It is empty, and that's the problem. It isn't about anything, and I know that style is very important, and I know that other crime films can be stodgy, and this can seem fresh by itself, but basically, you get the point real quickly, and there's nothing more to say.
Our first movie is True Romance, and this is a movie that sort of resembles an explosion down at the old movie genre factory. The screenplay by Quentin Tarantino cobbles together bits and pieces from every possible kind of male action movie and views them all through a focus of adolescent lust, macho bravado, and lurid stereotyping. The result is totally absurd and kind of fun. The film stars Christian Slater as a loner who works in a comic book store, and one day a soft-core dream walks into his life. Played by Patricia Arquette, she's a sexy blonde who dresses like a Playboy cartoon. It's love at first sight.
Do you have a fella?
Ask me that one a little bit later.
Slater is occasionally visited by the ghost of Elvis Presley, played here by Val Kilmer. The King knows Slater is worried about his girlfriend's lifestyle. She was a hooker, although of course only for 4 nights, but she's still in danger from her vicious pimp.
I do want to kill him, but I don't want to spend the rest of my life in jail.
Hey, man, I don't blame you.
Thought I'd get away with it.
Get away with it? Killing's the hard part. Getting away with it, that's easy.
Charged up by Elvis's pep talk, Slater takes on the pimp, played here by Gary Oldman.
Looky here, Charlie. None of this bull necessary. I don't got no hold over Alabama. I just trying to lend a girl a helping hand.
The supporting cast includes not one but two great character actors, Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper, as the plot thickens.
Dirty little whore found out we were going to do some business because your son, the cowboy, his flame, came in the room blazing and didn't stop till they were pretty sure everybody was dead.
What are you talking about?
True Romance was directed by Tony Scott, who made Top Gun and Beverly Hills Cop 2, but the real trademark on the script belongs to Quentin Tarantino, whose Reservoir Dogs made a big splash last year. True Romance is like a case study of the inflamed fantasies of violent, stupid, amoral, gun-loving, sexually obsessed teenagers. And on that level, which is admittedly a fairly low level, it is well-made and very entertaining. It tells the kind of story that a lot of teenage boys think they would like to live through before they grow up and begin to develop average intelligence, of course.
Now, I can't tell. Are you recommending the film?
I'm recommending the film as an example of exactly what it is, which is a stupid teenage boy's fantasy.
Yeah, well, I didn't care for it, and I guess on the same basis. I thought that it really was, as you said, completely disorganized, all thrown together, and we have a picture coming up later in this show.
Yes, we do.
That has many of the same kinds of story elements, but they've been organized in a fashion that is more compelling than this.
I agree with what you're saying.
This is really, I think it's kind of sloppy and dumb and not fun.
I think I'm going to agree with you about that picture that's coming up later in the show. It's an interesting coincidence, which I guess you were referring to earlier, that True Romance and California, two of the most violent films of the year to date, or for a couple of years maybe, are both on the same show, because True Romance is a movie that has obviously never given a moment's serious thought to the meaning of violence. It's just an entertaining exercise in bloody comic melodrama. And California is very wise, very thoughtful, and a whole lot scarier. But in the meantime, speaking of this picture, I found that it just had an energy level, a kind of manic excitement, a colorful quality to it, and performances by Patricia Arquette and Christian Slater that were fun in their own way as an example of what they are.
Listen, it didn't have a manic intensity to it because it wasn't sustained. It was choppy as heck.
I think it was an entertaining picture.
Not for me at all.
That showdown interrupts a stick-up in a scene from Pulp Fiction, Quentin Tarantino's amazingly entertaining, outrageous, challenging, bizarre new movie. This is filmmaking of a high order, a movie that walks a narrative tightrope so complicated and convoluted that unless you really stop to figure it out, the movie seems to double back on itself. It's a group of interconnected stories involving assorted lowlives on the fringes of Los Angeles, including in this scene a hitman played by John Travolta, who was assigned to take a gangster's wife out to dinner in a restaurant that could only be in Los Angeles. She's played by Uma Thurman.
Why do we feel it's necessary to yak about bull in order to be comfortable?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Meanwhile, another thread follows a boxer played by Bruce Willis, who's won a fight he was supposed to lose and is in great danger when he runs into the last man on earth he wants to see.
It's good to see you. I must go. I know I'm a good run.
He's dead.
Pulp Fiction is charged up with the exhilaration of pure filmmaking, with colorful characters and screwy dialogue and unbelievable situations and violence and comedy, all trying to shoulder each other off the screen. Pulp Fiction is rude and crude and R-rated, so keep that in mind. It is also one of the year's best films.
I liked it very much too, Roger, and this is the first picture of his that I really have enjoyed.
Yeah.
I think it's in the past, in Reservoir Dogs, there was a lot of energy and very little humanity, I felt, in that film. I thought it was going after style. Here, this film vibrates with interesting characters, and the dialogue, I mean, it's
fun to listen to these people talking. Even Travolta has just come back from Amsterdam, and he has a whole speech about McDonald's stores in Amsterdam that is fun to listen to. The things they talk about are so quirky.
I think that this guy is writing some of the most original dialogue since David Mamet. I think that the picture is very rough. There's violence in this film that's going to put people off. but there is humor and humanity in the picture that makes it all work. It's a big he's a big talent in this film.
It's a funny thing. I've seen the movie 3 times, and the violence seems to be less important every time I see it. For example, there's a man who's killed in the back seat of a car, and if you look carefully, you don't really see the violence so much as you see the consequences,
There's another,
which turn out to be very
There's another scene
amusing.
of abuse and sadomasochism that is going to put people away, I'm afraid. But that's only one scene in an otherwise, really, I think,
well, actually,
exciting
that
film.
movie I thought was handled in a very particularly delicate way in order to get it on the screen without really turning people off. Rarely in our years on the movie beat has a new director become as hot, as fast as Quentin Tarantino. Even Martin Scorsese and Francis Coppola had warm-up periods. In his combination of public persona and directorial acclaim, he goes on the list with Spike Lee and Woody Allen. And to find the same combination of high-profile and hot first film, you'd have to go all the way back to Orson Welles. In Tarantino's case, it's a combination of 2 factors. He makes good movies, and he has a flair for self-promotion. So far, he's directed only 2 films, writing and acting in both of them.
Well, the director that you haven't mentioned that he should be compared with in terms of being omnipresent and a public figure and a guest on talk shows is Alfred Hitchcock, of course. That's the level of penetration this guy is getting into the world. And why would a director like Spike Lee, who's a cutting-edge director, use Tarantino? Because I think he embodies this Generation X in a way that you buy. You're buying the whole generation and whatever it means, and no one can get a handle out of it, but he has the high energy, and he is right there representing, and that's why we're calling it the Tarantino generation, because it really is.
He represents a moment in time. He's been called the first director who's a rock and roll star.
Okay. As Tarantino, working with writing partner Roger Avary, delivered an Oscar-winning script with Pulp Fiction, giving rise to a voice as original, I think, in the movies as David Mamet's work was a decade earlier in the American theater.
Boy, is that a good comparison between Tarantino and Mamet, because in both cases, what they're giving us is something that superficially sounds like realistic dialogue, and the more closely you listen to it, the more you realize it's written dialogue.
Yes.
It's not recorded off the street. It's created as an imaginative work.
And it has resonance in the kinds of things that are left out of other movies.
Yes, it does.
This, if we have to explain the phenomenon, and it's really there, and if there's some substance in his work, it is just like in the picture I didn't like, and you didn't like, Reservoir Dogs, where he shows us the stuff that you don't get normally in a crime picture. Here, you're hearing words you don't normally hear in American movies.
Instead of the ordinary crime picture, which is on automatic pilot and all of the dialogue simply serves and pushes ahead the plot.
Another surprise about its wide acceptance, the film seemed exceedingly violent. Some argued it should have been rated NC-17 for adults only, but on close inspection, Pulp Fiction, as intense as it is not quite as violent as it seems. For example, take a look at this scene. Bruce Willis is about to eviscerate a guy with a samurai sword, but look, you see the swing of the sword, but not its contact because he's facing away from the camera. Then, the stabbing, but below the frame of the scene. You do not see the sword enter the body. Now, the violent intensity of Pulp Fiction calls to mind other violent watershed films that were considered classics in their time and still are. Hitchcock's Psycho, Arthur Penn's Bonnie and Clyde, and Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange. Each film shook up a tired, bloated movie industry and used a world of lively lowlifes to reflect how dull other movies had become. And that, I predict, will be the ultimate honor for Pulp Fiction. Like all great films, it criticizes other movies. Roger and I have been witness to the ossification of American movies with their brittle formulas. Pulp Fiction is a refreshing mind-bender. And audiences are saying they'd rather spend time with these creeps than with the boring straight people that occupy most American films.
Boy, I agree with that, Gene. And you know, out in Hollywood, there are screenwriting workshops and books and outlines and computer programs that tell you exactly how to write a movie, and we're beginning to go to the movies and recognize movies that have been written out of these formulas. Here's a guy who comes along and says, throw away all that junk, let's make it up fresh.
Yes, well, you know, he's talked about how he loves certain scenes, classic scenes from other movies, and what he's done is just throw one after another.
You've got it. Okay, I've looked at Pulp Fiction several times now, and during the week at the University of Virginia, I spent 10 hours going through it one shot at a time with a large group of students. I think there are several things that add to the movie's appeal. One is Tarantino's strategy of toying with the audience by delaying action and violence with humorous dialogue. In this scene, two hitmen are going on a job. They're discussing foot massage. They get to the apartment where their victims live, and instead of going in, they keep on talking. The camera, which has followed them this far, stays planted impatiently in front of the door, pivoting as they walk on, still talking.
Now look, just because I wouldn't get no man a foot massage, don't make it right for myself to throw Antoine off a building into a glass mother house the way the nigga talks. That shit ain't right.
What everybody notices is how the film's chronology is all mixed up. This isn't a linear narrative. It starts and ends by doubling back on itself to the same location, a coffee shop.
I love you, Pumpkin.
I love you, honey bunny.
Everybody be cool, this is a robbery!
Every one of the major sequences in Pulp Fiction ends with a character being saved. But if you told the story in chronological order, that would get monotonous. This way, the audience stays on its toes.
Oh, we absolutely stay on his toes, and I'm glad that you mentioned the sequence. I really think it is sort of a paradigm for the whole success of the picture, which is that the killers talk personally about meaningless stuff before they go on their job. It's that extra scene, that extra bit that would get lopped off by another kind of director, editor, or production executive. He lets things run on sloppy. It's those loose ends, which Andy Warhol, a great critic, Andy Warhol said that the outtakes of most pictures would be more interesting than what's put in a picture. Tarantino's success is devoted to the same thought process.
We've heard a lot of talk about the video generation, the wired generation, taking input from all kinds of sources, both high and low culture, and making something new out of it. That's what Tarantino seems to be doing, and I think he's going to be influential in freeing other filmmakers from the lockstep formulas of standard Hollywood screenplay outlines.
Well, the imitations have already started. We've seen a bad one, Destiny Turns on the Radio. Let's hope in the future we see some done well.
Now, this is a free service that Gene and I sometimes provide here on Siskel and Ebert, where we examine the state of health of a movie person's career and then make our diagnosis. And in the case of Quentin Tarantino, my diagnosis would be, Quentin, you are overextended. And so the doctor's prescription, you should slow down and take care of business. And in your case, business should mean writing and directing movies, not becoming a character actor and a talk show personality.
I completely agree. If he is going to do all this extra stuff, and particularly on talk shows, I think he has to remember to always talk about the movies and what he sees as his vision for American movies. Use the vehicle of the talk show, not to just be a performer, but to talk about film.
Our first movie is From Dusk Till Dawn, although maybe I should call it our first two movies because it starts out as a road picture about two escaping bank robbers who take hostages, and then halfway through it shifts gears and turns into a vampire movie. That's typical of the style of Quentin Tarantino, who wrote this film and likes to hop between genres. The high energy in the film is typical of its director, I think, Robert Rodriguez, who broke into the movies a few years ago with a low-budget hit named El Mariachi. As this new movie opens, two criminal brothers have just held up a highway liquor store and killed a Texas Ranger. Now the clerk has opened fire on them. The brothers are played by ER's George Clooney, who is relatively sane, and Quentin Tarantino, who is a mad dog killer. Trying to escape across the Mexican border, they take hostages. A former preacher, played by Harvey Keitel, and his children, played by Juliette Lewis and Ernest Liu.
I'm going to go on record right now as saying that this is a very bad idea.
Duly noted. Now shut up.
How many with you?
They end up in a scummy bar where almost everyone is actually secretly a vampire, and there's a lot of gory action. But Tarantino likes to work theological discussions into his portraits of violent lowlifes, so here the killer, played by Clooney, gets serious with the former minister.
Because I know that whatever is out there trying to get in is pure evil straight from hell. And if there is a hell, and those sons of are from it, then there has got to be a heaven, Jacob. There's got to be.
The movie borrows from everywhere, including George Romero's Ghoul movies, where all it takes is one bite and you're a monster too. Keitel knows his time is limited before he becomes a vampire.
Now, since you need me, I think you better swear.
You know, there are a few things in this movie that are really excellent, and one of them is the pre-title sequence involving a Texas Ranger played by Michael Parks. His dialogue is so well written, so well acted, and so funny that as he describes his backwater community, we can almost picture it. In fact, I almost wanted the movie to be about what he was talking about.
Me too.
And there are other moments like that in the movie. Tarantino can write dialogue, and Rodriguez can make films that move fast and take no hostages. The last half hour is essentially one long, violent fight scene punctuated by dialogue, and the special effects are well done. From Dusk Till Dawn delivers and it entertains, so I'm giving it thumbs up. But I know these guys have better pictures than this one in them.
And I'm giving it thumbs down, and I saw a picture, essentially the same picture as two different films, and I like the first one better.
Yeah.
To take these interesting characters, the brothers, the ranger, and he's the most interesting, and then Keitel, who I couldn't even spot in the beginning under his makeup. I mean, I thought he was sensational. To take all these people and then to run them through a vampire trash picture, and it really, Roger, there's nothing really original there.
No, I didn't say there was.
I know,
no.
not at all.
No, all the originality takes place before they get to the bar.
So, I mean, I'm sitting there and saying, all right, I'm invested, I'm laughing at some of this stuff, as violent as it is, and it is hyper-violent. I just felt that, you know, they didn't try in the second half of the picture, and it really is not just a half an hour. I'm giving it thumbs down.
It was a basic structural error.
Absolutely.
I'm giving it a marginal thumbs up because I think it does deliver, as I said, but you're right. They had a good picture going, and they lost it.
Really lost it.
Pam Grier plays a flight attendant who was arrested while trying to smuggle cash into the United States for Samuel L. Jackson's character, an illegal gun merchant. In that scene from Jackie Brown, the long-awaited new film by Quentin Tarantino. It's been 3.5 years since Tarantino's Pulp Fiction landed as the most influential movie of its time, and now Tarantino is back again with a picture built on colorful, low-life characters and a lot of high-quality dialogue. Grier's character, named Jackie Brown, knows Jackson plans to kill her before she can cooperate with the police, but she is way ahead of him there.
Now let's say, if I tell on you, I walk. If I don't, I'll go to jail.
Another key character in the movie is a bail bondsman played in a wonderful performance by Robert Forster, who combines understated professionalism with all the weariness of a man who has spent too long doing a job that discourages him.
Possession of unregistered machine guns. Yeah. Now, they gonna consider that a violation of his probation?
Michael Keaton and Michael Bowen play a federal agent and a local cop who are on Jackie Brown's trail. She sees through them, too, and sets them up as part of her complicated scam, which is designed to save her life and steal the money.
You ever seen him sell a gun?
No.
How do you know he sells guns?
He told me. Besides, why else would an ATF man be after it?
The film is rich with sharply observed characters, including the gunrunner's girlfriend, played by Bridget Fonda, and his ex-con buddy, played by Robert De Niro.
Here we go. AK-47, the very best there is. When you absolutely, positively got to kill every mother in the room, except no substitutes.
And Tarantino's dialogue there certainly owes more than a little to the novelist Elmore Leonard, whose rum punch inspired this movie. Jackie Brown shows Tarantino at his best, savoring the words and little details of behavior that make his characters so individual and original and memorable. The movie involves a complicated double cross by Jackie Brown, but it's also about her sweet and understated relationship with the bail bondsman. And in its own quiet way, the chemistry between Pam Grier and Robert Forster is the heart of the movie. Instead of hurtling toward a routine ending like a lot of caper films, Jackie Brown is about the process, not the payoff. This is a film that's too good to be in a hurry.
Well, the dialogue is what's so distinctive about Tarantino's work. Frankly, if I had a script, I'd let him take a pass at it. Almost any script, except maybe you know, some 19th century English drama or something. He's that good of a writer.
Yes, he is.
He's listened wherever he's been in the world. He's listened very, very well. I also like the fact, you know, when Pam Grier was announced for this project, everyone thought, well, this is going to be his riff on blaxploitation movies. And I suppose with the theme song Across 110th Street and all that, there is some of that, but it's a whole lot more than that. It is a sweet love story, as it turns out. And he's just a darn good writer. I'm so pleased to hear what comes out of the character's mouth.
And Pam Grier does not play an exploitation character. She plays a tired airline stewardess in her 40s who was about to lose probably the last job that she can get, and is very desperate and is very smart and is thinking very hard. It's a real good performance because Pam Grier actually is much more glamorous in real life than she is in this movie, and more energetic too. It's a performance.
Yeah,
here.
but in her opening scene, I mean, he's paying a little bit tribute, moving along a conveyor belt at the airport with that great soundtrack.
This special show, Martin Scorsese and I make our personal selections of the best films of the 1990s. And the number 2 film on my list is possibly the most influential film of the decade, Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction from 1994. The movie looped through time to tell parallel stories involving two-bit criminals, broken-down boxers, low-level drug dealers, gangsters' girlfriends, and hitmen in a movie that combines sudden bursts of action with ironic comedy, parody, and characters who love to make small talk on their way to big moments.
Royale with cheese.
If you follow the characters through the loop-the-loop of the plot, you also find that most of them do find personal redemption in one way or another, so that Pulp Fiction becomes a comedy masquerading as hard-boiled. And it's a complete original, which unfortunately inspired way too many other young filmmakers to write way too much Tarantinian dialogue. They knew the words, but not the music.
What I love about the picture is the structure, the way he tells the story. There's many different stories, and literally the humor, the irony, and all based on the bedrock of American pop culture, which threw me at first in terms of, at first I approached the picture as a kind of realistic film, in a way, or naturalist, not naturalistic, but realistic in the way these people would behave. But who are these people? I never met people like this.
You know, Paul Schrader, who has written 4 of your films, was telling me that he feels in the 90s that existentialism, the idea of what we do with our lives, has been replaced by irony, and so that everything has quotation marks around it. Your films are not in quotation marks. They are meant. Do you feel any urge at all to start using the quotation marks, or is it just
never.
Alien to you as a filmmaker?
No, I just can't. I just have to be attracted to the material. Really, the characters, the morality of the characters is what I'm interested in, and how one deals with morality in today's world.
And Pulp Fiction isn't really about morality at all.
No.
Quentin Tarantino is the legendary wild man of American directors, and you can smell his love of film in every frame of Kill Bill Volume 1. This is his homage to Hong Kong martial arts movies, heavy on storytelling, but light on story. All you need to know is that Uma Thurman's character is left for dead after her wedding party is killed by the deadly Viper assassination squad, and she wants vengeance. The rest of the movie shows her getting vengeance.
So when do we do this? It all depends. When do you want to die?
That scene with Vivica A. Fox comes after they've torn apart the living room in a bloody knife fight that's put on pause when Fox's 4-year-old daughter walks in. In a flashback while Thurman is in a coma after the attack on her family, another enemy, played by Daryl Hannah, has a chance to finish her off.
Hello, Bill.
What's her condition?
That's the voice of Bill, played by David Carradine. Another enemy is O-Rin Ishii, played by Lucy Liu. She's the new ruler of the Tokyo Mafia, even though she's an American and half Chinese.
The price you pay for bringing up either my Chinese or American heritage as a negative is, I collect your head.
The movie has unlimited graphic violence, but not a shred of realism. He also uses black and white, slow motion, and those old pop songs he loves, of which the most appropriate is Bang Bang, He Shot Me Down. How's my singing? Not too good.
Bad,
okay.
not
Kill
bad.
Bill is an example of pure action filmmaking, stylized and exaggerated as a series of riffs on a very simple story, and it's kind of brilliant.
It really is. You know, Tarantino is literally a bloody genius, and it was wise to split this film in half, because after 100 minutes of that stylized action gore, we need a moment to catch our breath and regain our balance. This is the ultimate movie for kung fu drive-in geeks, but even if you don't get the references to the Shaw Brothers or even a freakazoid movie starring Haley Mills, you have to admire the ink-black humor and that swirling fight choreography. Kill Bill is a big-budget, geek drive-in classic.
You know, Tarantino's love of movies is tangible, and he is a born filmmaker. And here, it's as if he did away with everything that wasn't pure action filmmaking. There really is no plot at all, except, oh, you guys killed my family, now I'm going to kill you.
I've got my checklist of revenge,
and she's
literally.
She's crossing it out on the yellow pad, and then it's all action, and it's done so well.
Fight scenes are amazing, and they're sometimes very funny with the blood spurting. And you're right, it's completely stylized, but it still is very violent and very gory. And it's amazing that we live in an MPAA universe where Woody Allen's latest movie and Kill Bill Volume 1 are both considered to be R movies. Kudos to Tarantino for figuring out how to get an R rating for this film.
It's a big, big category. You know, people will probably not really pay much attention to Uma Thurman's work here because it's an action performance, but it's a wholly physical performance that is out there from beginning to end.
Yeah, in a way, you know, we like her, we empathize with her, even though she's an assassin. I guess she's the most attractive and likable assassin in the bunch. So, you know, I can't wait for Volume 2. I'm already looking forward to it.
My 8th favorite movie of the year is the outrageously bloody Kill Bill Volume 2. Of course, it's a sequel. The title kind of gives that away, but it stands alone as a self-contained story and a stunning visual achievement marked by Tarantino's trademark fondness for stylized violence. Tarantino's genius is in his great pop culture dialogue and his ability to merge what he's learned from great action directors with his own touches.
Not only do I agree with you about Tarantino, but I think he's going to come up even higher on my list. Number 2 on my list, Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill Volume 2, which was number 8 on Richard's list. Kill Bill Volume 2 was not only better than Kill Bill, but made Kill Bill itself better by completing the story and providing a context. Uma Thurman starred in a performance of fearsome physical difficulty, seeking revenge after murder ended her bridal plans. Her martial arts duel with Daryl Hannah is a masterpiece of action choreography. And when Bill finally turns up at the end of a long wait, David Carradine does not disappoint. Tarantino is a master of dialogue here.
Clark Kent is Superman's critique on the whole human race.
Dialogue here just goes on, and it's fascinating the way Tarantino can make an action payoff much better by the way he sets it up with words and with mental images that we already have.
But the intense violence and the physicality of it, I mean, sometimes it's very cartoonish. I think because of all the great dialogue and so many characters, it was wise to split this into 2 movies. There are 2 complete films here.
I went on what the movie advertisements refer to as a roaring rampage of revenge. When I arrive at my destination, I am gonna kill Bill.
And there are plenty of people, including Bill, who know that the bride won't stop until all the people on her hit list are eliminated. They're the deadly Viper assassination squad who gave her a near-death experience in the first chapter. That was just before her wedding. Uma Thurman returns as the stunning Black Mamba. Bill is her former lover and mentor and ultimate target.
Are you gonna be nice?
I've never been nice my whole life. But I'll do my best to be sweet.
There are sensational visual tributes to the kinds of films that director Quentin Tarantino holds sacred. He initially had Warren Beatty in mind for the Bill character, but David Carradine's presence echoes the director's obsession with the kung fu genre.
Hates Caucasians, despises Americans, and has nothing but contempt for women.
A flashback shows that Bill arranged for his aspiring henchwoman to study with the ultimate master, Pai Mei. That was a big mistake.
That woman deserves her revenge.
One condition. She must suffer to her last breath.
The women rule again in this volume, with Daryl Hannah underestimating her assailant's rage. We get more character insights and we learn the roots of the rivalries. This is a terrific movie, as exuberant and funny as it is action-packed. Quentin Tarantino is at the top of his game, and he's come up with a second chapter that I think is even better than the first. You might want to get the DVD of Kill Bill Volume 1 to get the full impact of both movies, or really, it's just really one long movie. Tarantino's enormous passion for cinema is evident in one of the best movies of the year. I give Kill Bill Volume 2 4 stars, and I'm Roger Ebert, ABC 7 News.